What's up, wrestling fans? This is Smart Mark, and in the interest of doing something different, keeping the show fresh, I wanted to do my first preview. This is going to be a preview of tomorrow's Impact Wrestling / TNA pay-per-view, Genesis. I'm going to start at the bottom of the card and work my way to the main event, and just give you my thoughts on the matches they've got scheduled for the show. Looks like they're going to kick things off with Gunner versus RVD. And I think you're going to actually see Sting come out before the show starts. Or maybe somehow, I don't know, they'll work it out. But I think you're going to get Garrett Bischoff in RVD's corner, because on Thursday's Impact, they made a point of Sting pointing out that RVD didn't have somebody in his corner, and that's why Flair couldn't go out. And then they make a point of showing that Bischoff's back, who obviously should, his beef should be with Gunner because he's the one that put him out. So I think you'll see Garrett come out with RVD, and if not, I think at the very least you'll have a run-in situation at the end of the match involving Garrett Bischoff. Then we've got the Monsters Ball match between Bully Ray and Abyss, and I'm hoping for, a good hardcore style match. Hopefully somebody gets some color, as they put it, or we see some blood, because that is one that, I agree that you don't need a lot of blood and hardcore matches all the time, but every once in a while it is, pretty awesome to get a match like that. And Monsters Ball by making it a Monsters Ball match, that implies that you're going to have a good hardcore match. So hopefully they do it right, and I think that Abyss will get the win. In the Gunner RVD match, in case I didn't say, I think that it'll probably end up being like a DQ situation or something. It won't be clean, but I would expect RVD to get technically the victory. Then we'll have, for the Knockouts title, Gail Kim and Mickie James. Mickie's already had 2 shots at the title, or Gail Kim beat her for the title, then Mickie did not get it back at the Impact a couple of weeks ago, so my best guess is that Gail Kim is going to retain the title, and it'll probably come down to some outside interference from Madison Rayne or something. Like Madison will interfere and Tracy Brooks will get involved. What I think they're actually going to set up, because we saw on Impact Mickie and Tracy Brooks going for those tag titles, and so I think we'll see this interference, and then this will lead to another shot at the tag titles maybe, and Mickie and Tracy Brooks will actually win the tag titles. But I do think they'll keep Gail Kim as the Knockouts champ right now. And that gives a reason, at least for those tag titles to exist, because now I could see another team that's there. And honestly, the issue you have with having these tag titles, and there's only a couple of teams, is that the only other team really is Tara and Tessmacher. Angelina and Winter, but we haven't seen them in a while, so there's no real reason to think they're going to be, winning the tag belts. But I think if they're going to have those belts, they need to maybe get them off of Gail and Madison Rayne but at the same time, it's like the only other option is TNT. So maybe, I don't know, we're leading to getting them on to Tara and Tessmacher. As far as again, Gail Kim will keep the title and probably keep it for a little while longer. Then the Pope and Devon, and their feud has obviously been working, or has been working around Devon's kids getting involved as well. So I think that's going to be the big thing of this match that will dictate who wins, and I would imagine that that's going to be the Pope. And while we're talking about the Pope, I want to kind of rant for a second about something that's missing from this pay-per-view, and that is the television title. What I've been thinking about is the fact that Robbie E. hasn't been on the show for a couple of weeks. They haven't mentioned the title. And I'm a big fan of this title and want it to elevate to a higher level. You know, back in the day, if you were the Intercontinental Champion, that meant you were the number one contender technically for the title. Now, generally there would be some kind of feud or something going on, but, you know, technically speaking, you were the number two guy. But they don't use the TV title like that. They use it as a much more undercard kind of title. If Robbie E., basically, by his absence, you set up a situation where Steve could come out, be like, Robbie's been hiding out, not showing up to shows, or something along the lines of him trying not to wrestle so he doesn't have to defend that title. But Sting's putting it into it, and now they're going to put either like a series of matches together to get some contenders together, or do like a battle royal type thing. What I would like to see is where they would do like a series of four-way matches, like 3 matches with 4 guys, and, you know, put the RVD, the Pope, Devon, maybe even a couple of extra, you know, like a Jesse Sorensen or Kid Cash, Magnus, you know, guys that are a little closer to the top, Gunner, and basically getting to the point of having like a 4-way ladder match with the TV title, and having the 4 guys being, you know, if whoever wins it, somebody a little higher on the card deservingly than Robbie E., you know, or Eric Young. Let's do something with this title to make it more important. You know, another thing is, wouldn't it be smart, since they've kind of done something to try to separate the entities of TNA and Impact Wrestling, to make that TV title the Impact Wrestling Television Champion, and maybe even have like a blue belt? I'm just saying. Alright, back to things that are actually happening. The X Division title is going to be on the line in a 4-way match, and this promises to have, you know, a lot of good action. And the one thing that has always made Impact a, you know, better show when it comes to action is the fact that they have these X Division wrestlers featured. So you got the champ Austin Aries, Kid Cash, Jesse Sorensen, and Zema Ion. Aries will most likely retain his title, but when I look at this and I see that 3 out of 4 of these contenders are heels, including Aries, Cash, Ion, you know, and Sorensen's the only babyface. So it seems to make sense that Sorensen would be the champ, And then you have 3 guys right there that could line up to go against him. So, although my brain tells me that Aries is going to retain the title, I do see a big possibility for it to go to Sorensen. And I think it would be the smarter move, because Aries is so good that he, in any match he works, he doesn't really have to have that title. But it would really propel Sorensen the most of any of these guys at this moment. Next match on the card is going to be the tag team title match with Samoa Joe and Magnus, who won the mix and match tag team tournament, teaming miscellaneous wrestlers together, and they're going to get their chance against Morgan and Crimson. I think that Morgan and Crimson will most likely retain here, but if they want to cement the fact that there are a couple of tag teams now, and get back to kind of having a division for tag teams, the smart move would be to put them on Joe and Magnus. Because if they don't, what reason is there for Joe and Magnus to continue as a tag team? And then they would have to work. I mean, it would be so much easier if Joe and Magnus won the titles, because Morgan and Crimson have obviously started to gel as a tag team already. So Morgan and Crimson now would be that much more likely to want to try to get that rematch. And now you've cemented Joe and Magnus as a tag team by putting the belts on them. And you've got the obvious at least one, if not 2 more matches, and a reason for there to be 2 more matches with Morgan and Crimson. And then behind that, you can sneak in, a third team. At some point, one has to imagine that the Motor City Machine Guns will be back. I know Sabin is out for a year, but it seems like he's been out for a while. So, I mean, it's about time, I'm thinking, for them to be coming back. And now you've got 3 tag teams. By the way, Joe and Magnus got into this match by beating AJ Styles and Kazarian, and they did a big thing, we're a team, we've got this fortune connection, and then they showed Kazarian, looking like he was having some kind of mental issue, and as they're walking away, you see that Daniels is in the room with them. So Joe and Magnus win this match by Kazarian swerving on AJ. So what I was predicting almost 3 or 4 weeks ago, what I said needed to happen with Kazarian joining up with Daniels, hell, I don't know exactly. I said this a while back. To give Kazarian some flavor here, it's happening. And I like it. I like this move a lot. Watch for now, obviously it's not happening at the pay-per-view, but next week on Impact, AJ and Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, a situation now that's going to create an interesting match. I digress, but out of the match that propelled Joe and Magnus you also had this split, this interesting feud developing involving Daniels, Kazarian, and Styles. So just thought that was a good piece of work, worth mentioning. Next match is going to be the final, one would think, match between Kurt Angle and James Storm, as Storm has already beaten Angle twice. And well, most people think is going to win again. I think Angle will get the win here. TNA is always have to try to stretch a feud out and get as much mileage as it can out of a feud when it involves Kurt Angle. If you have ever noticed, their longest feuds, the stories that you're just like, God, is this ever going to end, almost always involve Kurt Angle. So watch for Angle to get the win here, setting up yet another match with James Storm. I hope I'm wrong. What I think needs to happen here is Storm get the win and be propelled into now some kind of number one contender spot against Rude. But I'm kind of thinking they want to use Hardy more, and that this Hardy and Rude situation is going to play out longer. So watch for Angle to beat Storm. That's my prediction. And that will take us to the main event, which is Jeff Hardy versus Bobby Roode. Now, a lot of people have been just in an outrage because of Hardy getting this push. But I've said all along that Hardy getting this push is actually all building up to putting Bobby Roode over and getting Bobby Roode a big signature win over a Jeff Hardy at a pay-per-view. So I'm not going to sway from my opinion at this point. Bobby Roode is going to win this match. But it's going to happen in a way that extends the feud, and we will surely have another Hardy versus Roode. And at that point, probably at the next pay-per-view, I would not be surprised if we do see Jeff Hardy win that belt. So that wraps up what I think is going to be a very good Genesis show. The one thing that I look here and I see is not a lot of room for a lot of surprises. The thing that you want out of pay-per-views, the thing back in the day that they seem to understand a little bit more, is that's where you have the biggest impactful moments, the singular moments that are going to stand out in history as being, a sign of the times, a sign of where the show's at, a change. So, Genesis would be a great time for a John Morrison or, whoever, somebody to come out from the crowd, or have Sting introduce the newest acquisition, or, something like that, to get people like, oh, this happened at Genesis this year. That's one thing that, obviously not being advertised here, there's no way to say that it would happen or not. But if they were smart at all, that's what you need, is things like that at your pay-per-views. That's where your major baby faces need to have their heel turn happen, or new guys come out, or a new faction develop, you know. So hopefully we get some kind of big surprise at Genesis, but when I look at the shape of the card, there's just, in my mind, nothing, you know, nothing that's really gonna be a big surprise. It's just gonna be a series of matches. But they will be solid matches. There's matches here I'm, you know, really excited to see. So until next time, this has been Smart Mark, and let me know what you guys are looking forward to about Genesis, or what you think is going to be the, you know, letdown at Genesis. Whatever you got to say about it, I would like to hear it. Until next time, thanks for listening, guys.